March 17th to order. If you'd all stand for Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our God and our Father, we just want to thank you for the beautiful weather that you have poured out upon us today, Lord. We love the chilly morning and we love the warm weather last week, but we just thank you for the opportunity to just enjoy this planet that you created, Lord. Help us to protect it. Help guide and direct us in all that we do. We thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ. We ask it all in your precious name, Jesus. Amen. You got in the packet your minutes for March 3rd's meeting. If you've had a chance, I'd entertain a motion on that whenever you
Brian
guys.
Kyer makes a motion that we approve the March 3rd minutes.
We got a first and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Clerk's report, treasurer's report, all acknowledge that we did receive both of them. Moving right on along, we got Mr. Kyle, HWC Greenway Trail Plan. Actually, Morgan County Greenway Master Plan, forgive me.
Good afternoon, good evening rather. My name is Kyle Leakin, landscape architect with HWC Engineering. Take a little bit of time this evening to present to you kind of our summary of our Morgan County White River Greenway Master Plan we've been working on for several months. See a couple people who helped us through this process in the audience. Appreciate them for coming out. I guess any questions before I get started? Oh, all right. I hopefully you can see the screen. Okay, I don't know if Deb, I don't want to put people to sleep here, but thank you. That would work. As I said, my name is Kyle Leakin, Senior Project Manager, Landscape Architect. Also with me is Tanner Williams, another landscape architect with our office who helped work on this plan. A little bit what I want to give to you tonight is just a brief overview of the plan process, the purpose of this plan, how it developed, and then some of the key outcomes or summary that we identified through it. Purpose of this plan really was to help establish some consensus and refine a possible route for a continuation of the White River Greenway throughout Morgan County. As part of that effort, identifying if there's any additional spur or trail connections which may branch off of that main spine along the White River or nearby. To understand with that future trail network what priorities for trail amenities, connections, and trailhead locations may be. And then to really further identify beyond just a map on a line, or a line on a map, start to break out that trail into doable segments. So breaking that up into segments that could be used for future funding or future project opportunities. So it wasn't one massive trail project, but some smaller pieces that could be pursued. Some of those key outcomes that we like to see from this or hope to see is that connectivity of your communities throughout Morgan County, improving and supporting public health, getting people out onto the trails, both of physical health and mental health, being able to provide an avenue to get out into nature. Economic development, there's been plenty of studies show the benefits of trail development, how they can support economic development, especially when you look at some of the tie-in points which I'll show of nearby areas of development that's happening in the county. Supporting amenities to encourage people to get out on the trails, and education, more awareness and just support for the trail network in Morgan County, building on what's already been done at Waverly. So as we started this, one of the things we wanted to look at was local and regional success. So the White River Greenway, or a trail along the White River, has shown up in at least 8 Morgan County plans going back to 2004. Beyond the county, it has also shown up in at least 7 regional plans, a lot of the Indianapolis MPO regional plans. The trail has shown up in those plans in one way or another as well. Where this plan really strove to be different than those is to really start to dive into some of that details. It was more, I said, than just kind of that concept line on a map, but start to get to some specifics and understand magnitude of the improvements for the plan. As I noted, in Morgan County, the kind of impetus and what you have to start with this is the trail that is built at Waverly. For those in the audience who don't know, there is a segment of the White River Trail already built at Waverly Park. And this really looked at at that as our launching point and how can we grow north or south using this as our starting point. Beyond Morgan County, the trail does factor heavily into your regional peers. Marion County has White River Greenway as well that stretches down southwest from downtown Indianapolis with plans to continue on to Southwest Way Park, just not that far up Man Road from Morgan County. A couple years ago, Hamilton and Marion County also got together to develop the White River Vision Plan. So really a big economic development and vision plan for how to utilize and capture recreational development along the White River. So this is kind of a continuation of that effort. That was a vision plan and not the level of detail that this one dove into. Beyond kind of Marion County, also looking just to your east, you've got trail development and plans happening in Bargersville when you look at their comprehensive plan. Greenwood is planning for trail extensions. Franklin is planning for trail extensions that can eventually connect to Greenwood. So it's starting to understand this trail in the context of a larger regional trail network. So this plan specific, how did it develop? Started in earnest in August with a small steering committee. We met with that group about 6 times through the process. When we started this, the first part we started with was inventory and analysis. So we looked at GIS and mapping at your road network, at existing and proposed county trails, looking at those regional trails as well, where they interface with the county, understanding railroad and utility corridors, hydrology and relief, obviously a big part of being along the White River, understanding those floodways and floodplains, and parcels and land cover, understanding where are open fields, where are woods, where are large tracts of government-owned property already, that can help inform what routes may make sense to peel off as an individual project. I'm not going to go through all the pieces of those that we looked at, but I said our first part was really starting a high level of analysis based on info we had for potential routes and starting to identify where those constraints are for the trail itself. Following kind of the data part of this, we also had some public input opportunities. We had a public workshop here in this room in early October. And that workshop and the subsequent survey, which I'll show you that we had out as well, really aimed to just understand what type of trail facilities do people feel most comfortable with? Is it a greenway that's kind of separated from the road? Is it a multi-use path next to a road, gravel versus asphalt? And what sort of amenities would people prefer to see? So we had that public workshop. We also wanted to understand where are key destinations, where should this trail consider connections to, what trail segments should be prioritized. If we're looking at potential routes, where would those first priorities be? And the survey, we had 14 survey questions, which mirrored the public workshop that we had. A lot of the same imagery was used in the survey itself to understand those same priorities and preferences. Of that public survey that was out online, we had 126 participants. Our original goal was to be at Waverly for the Fall Festival, but if you recall this year, we had weather that changed, that did not allow that to happen, so we kind of quickly retooled and brought out the public survey as a second approach to garner some public input. Part of that public survey also was asking for the priorities of trail segments. We started to break it up, I said, in kind of those manageable 2 to 5 mile segments, and understand of those what priorities may be. At least through the public survey, what we found was segment 2, which would be moving kind of south, segment 2 and 3, both moving south from Waverly Park, seemed to be the most popular through the survey. Some of those takeaways from those is really people feel most comfortable on a paved greenway that's kind of separated from the trail. People do want to see furnishings and bike racks and kind of trail amenities, not just the trail itself. There was conversation on some of the open-ended about a loop at Waverly itself to kind of take the trail that's done there and create a loop trail there rather than just continuing north or south as well. And some of the destinations within Morgan County include Old Town Park in Mooresville, Pioneer Park in Mooresville, Anderson Orchard west of Mooresville, and other key destinations outside Morgan County like Bargersville, Greenwood, and Plainfield. The survey, as I said, mirrored a lot of the same questions, same general takeaways. People prefer the Greenway Trail as opposed to a gravel trail or a road along, as opposed to like a bike lane on the road or a trail immediately along the road. Also did have, again, those trail amenities, wanting to see comfort stations, which are restrooms. Those would be, we identified locations those could occur along here, but they become very challenging. Bike racks, rest reflection nodes, lighting signage, all were important parts. Of those items not listed that were open-ended that people responded about were water, providing watering stations, drinking fountains, nature and environmental considerations such as preserving natural habitats and wildlife, and accessibility and inclusivity. So from kind of that high level on the data side and the public input, we moved into the plan itself. Again, we looked at those regional trails, and you can kind of see all those blue and purple are different trails that are either built or in the process in your immediately surrounding context. On that first one, I noticed some of the work with Bargersville and Greenwood. In addition to that, you also have Plainfield and Hendricks County also planning for trails. When you look at large regional trail networks, in addition to the White River Trail that's already in Marion County, also have the Vandalia Trail that's starting to run between Greencastle and Plainfield, which presents another opportunity for regional trail connections via Plainfield and Hendricks County. When you look at the vision then for Morgan County, what we really zeroed in on were identifiable segments that ran, you can kind of see on here these two big deviations kind of north of what would be Foxcliff area in Martinsville. We looked at identifiable segments from that point up to the point of Landersdale Trail, so kind of the northeastern quadrant of the county. The reason for that, we still identified 2 potential routes to get down around Martinsville, but with the scope of this plan really trying to identify some of those easy or low-hanging fruit or identifiable projects, it really zeroed in on those top segments, in addition to one segment south of Martinsville, which I'll touch on as well. For those who are interested, the same map is printed on this 24 by 36 board if you wanted to take a closer look. So we identified 5 initial segments plus the Waverly Loop, as I mentioned, came out of some of that public input. They range from 2 miles, 2.1 miles, up to 5.2 miles. So trying to, again, make those into bite-sized, project feasible pieces so you're not trying to take on the entire corridor at once. In the White River, in the plan document, we've got more detailed enlargements like you see on the screen, which provide a primary route, a preferred route, and this one actually shows 2 potential alternates. Every route, it shows at least 1 alternative route. The reason being is you get into these projects and you find out other constraints or what property acquisition may be or what property is available through government property already, give some flexibility for those routes to still accomplish the same goal of creating point A to B through that segment. So segment 1 is 2.8 miles. Some of the difficulties or challenges on this one that were noted, sorry, skipped one. It is 2.6 miles. This one really is the segment that looks to move south of Martinsville and make a connection ultimately to the Knobstone Trail, but a connection to Morgan Monroe State Forest. So the challenges on this one really deal with topography. You would get a route at some point that would have to change to gravel, and working with DNR to get to that property to where you could start to connect to the trail network in Morgan Monroe State Forest. That was a priority that came up at the public workshop is this segment alone, even though it is not connected to the other pieces. So this is kind of the standalone one, different than the other 4 segments, in that it's its own piece at the southern end, but still is a critical need of trying and desire to try to get that trail network in Morgan Monroe connected up to Martinsville. Segment 2 is 2.8 miles. Some of the challenges, unique constraints on this one include the crossing, a bridge crossing at Stotts Creek, plus 1 other bridge along the preferred route. Along New Harmony Road, there's also some retaining wall and dealing with riprap that exists along there. So as you look in the plan, and I do have copies for the commissioners of the plan, you can see these symbols where we start to identify some of those unique constraints and challenges along the trail, along with the summary table of those trail amenities and constraints. Segment 3 is the longest one. It's 5.2 miles. It's also the longest stretch that has continuous frontage along the White River. As we evaluated those constraints that I reviewed earlier, the topography and the hydrology and the road network, all of those, there are times where the trail, at least the preferred route, because of those constraints, could not stay along the White River. Wherever possible, we showed that as an alternative or an option. This segment with the 5.2 miles is the one with the longest continuous run along the White River. It's also the segment that would break immediately south of the existing trail in Waverly. Some of the constraints here include 2 bridges, some shoreline improvements where it looks like there's erosion occurring on the White River, some switchbacks to get from the low levels at the White River up to the road network where it would have to connect. And despite its length, it is actually the lowest cost per mile of all the segments. when you compare those costs per mile in the other segments. The Waverly Loop, identifying a way that we can create that loop trail around the existing trail at Waverly. The constraints here really look at possible boardwalk that may be needed along the west side of Waverly Park Road, and or just construction kind of to the lower part of that road in some wet areas. There would be a small culvert crossing that would be needed as well. But this one, again, it's separate from those other segments in that it doesn't necessarily further the trail along the White River, but does create a nice loop amenity at Waverly Town Park. Segment 4 would be the first segment that moves north of Waverly Park. A lot of the frontage is also along the White River. At 4.1 miles, it is the most expensive segment. And the reason for that is we really have to deal with the biggest bridge crossing of all the segments. That is either utilizing or finding a way to expand or provide a new bridge along the existing State Road 144 bridge that goes over the White River, or providing a new bridge crossing, which would still be similar in length. In addition to those bridge costs, which drive a lot of the cost of this segment, you do have the actual crossing at State Road 144 to contend with, which adds to some of the cost and constraints and complexity of this segment. And lastly, segment 5 would start to deviate away from the White River again. And the reason for this is the goal to, one, keep the trail within the county. The White River past this point starts to veer northeast, more into Johnson County and Marion County. We also are looking to try to get this trail to connect up to the existing Landersdale Road Trail. So this starts to move northwest to make that ultimate connection, following along the creek at this point with a cut over to Man Road and following Man Road up to Landersdale Trail. There is a small bridge that would be on this one as well. And at 4.3 miles, it's not quite as expensive as segment 4, but just due to its length is more expensive in comparison to the others. So the summary of those, again, segment 1, 2.6 miles. That budget that we have in that ranges from $1.13 to $1.3 million per mile. These project budgets would have been included in here are conservative and include all the anticipated what we call soft costs. So that would be your permitting, design, and engineering. So it's not just the construction cost, but looks at what a total project cost could be for some of these trail segments. Segment 2, at 2.8 miles, a little bit lower cost at a range of $1 million to $1.4 million per mile. Segment 3, as I mentioned, even though it's the longest segment, has the lowest cost per mile at just under $1 million per mile. What this also assumes on that trail profile is a 10-foot wide asphalt trail. So in line with those preferences before of kind of that greenway and hard surface trail, these budgets assume a 10-foot wide asphalt trail with another 5 foot on each side for right-of-way and buffer on the trail itself. The Waverly Loop Trail would be right around that same range, 1.1 to 1.2. Segment 4, which I noted has the large bridges, 4.1 miles would be closer to 1.6 to 1.8 million per mile. And segment 5, the last segment to connect up to Landersdale Trail, be 1.2 to 1.3 million per mile. So the next steps on this would be for, just so it's a document for the county to lean back on for funding, it would be to adopt the plan, continuing conversations with trail partners. I know there's been, again, when you look at this trail has shown up about 8 times in Morgan County since 2004. Continue conversations with IDNR and with NDOT and other trail partners to identify where this trail could be built. Start to identify potential funding. Had a conversation with the trail group that a lot of that is up in flux at the current moment of what those funding opportunities would be, both with its changes at the federal level and with changes at the state level. But looking for what those, in the past at the state level, state has been very aggressive in helping fund Next Level Trails and Indiana Trails program. So I'd expect some iteration of that to continue and just have to monitor and see what programs the state offers. And then once that's identified and looking conversations with trail partners in the county, ideally to start design on one of those segments that you could make some progress towards expanding that trail in Waverly. So I try to keep it brief on St. Patty's Day, hopefully not too long, but wanted to give a full overview of the trail process. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Kyle?
Well, sort of. I'm lost a little bit.
Okay.
Well,
You got
not totally.
lost on the trails?
I've been that way all a long time. First of all, on this, are these segments by priority?
No, there was priority mentioned in the plan, just from public input, but we didn't want to lock in and say you actually absolutely have to proceed with one segment over the other.
So what would be the priority if there is one? There
It-
isn't one, or,
What we heard through kind of the public input and discussions, I think kind of there's dual priorities, two tracks. One is that segment one, like I mentioned, which is the connection from Martinsville south to Morgan Monroe and creating that gap and that trail network that exists up to Martinsville. The second priority, I would say, and when you look at kind of where your most economic sense is probably continuing either the Waverly Loop, making that loop around Waverly, or extending the trail south from Waverly. I think moving north from Waverly presents a bigger hurdle at the moment.
I've got one more question, sort of along that line, but of course, we're always looking at the funding,
Yes.
and I mean, that's the biggie. Is NPO involved in any of this?
They were not involved in this funding, but by adopting the plan, this would be one to send to them so they have it for their records.
Okay.
It was not an MPO-funded plan or. an
Well, I didn't
NPO
know
plan
where
itself.
didn't know where MPO went. I know they've got a trail program, or,
Yes, and so actually, so that was when I noted kind of those seven, the trail that existed, get back to it, here we go. Those
Yeah.
regional plans, you can
Right.
see how many of those are MPO plans.
right.
So this White River Trail has featured in the MPO's planning process.
I didn't know how far they were,
How far along?
you see well, I didn't see the latest ones there.
Yeah, the
Pending plan,
2020 was kind of their last update on the regional pedestrian plan and bikeways plan. State of Indiana has a visionary trail plan of
Okay.
trails of critical importance. This is also one of those trails that fits with the State of Indiana visionary trails. So where the trail is supported by the MPO, certainly it's appeared multiple times in their documents. This just has gone further than any of the MPO plans has in actually digging into the constraints and how that might be done.
and the final question is really simple, it's just this, I saw something, I didn't know what it was, and, what's a shroud? S-H-R?
Sharrow?
I have never heard of
Yes,
that.
let me go to that. So a sharrow, and a lot of people do not like them. If you've ever been on a roadway and noticed kind of like a chevron symbol or arrows painted, it's not a bike lane. If you notice a bike lane will have like a white line and a bike symbol. A sharrow often is a bike symbol and then like little arrows under it. And it basically is just supposed to be share the road, sharrow.
I don't do that.
They're not popular, and that's for
I
a
can
very reason.
understand that.
Yes.
Not very safe.
I've been run off the road by a Cheryl.
Yes, they exist, they are a measure that are used, but certainly not, I think if you kind of go in those orders of priorities, you'd see people say a sharrow, then a bike lane, then a multi-use path, kind of this hierarchy of
I
comfort.
put that for the symbol. All right, thank you.
Right?
Any other questions for Kyle? This will be our first reading, correct? You don't need a motion for that?
Is it just a contract or is there an ordinance?
We're adopting the Dagan White River Greenway Master Plan. Thing?
Are you gonna adopt it tonight?
I figured we'd do like an ordinance, do two readings, but if you say we can do it in one, I'm fine with one, but I don't know where the other two are at.
I would,
I'd at least want to give public two chances, but that's just me.
I'm okay with giving another chance, but what I'm saying is what are we actually adopting here? Like,
Adopting the plan with the Dagan.
are we signing something? There's not a signature.
There's not a signature page.
So
Just
you wanna come back
Dagan County.
on the 7th and do a resolution to adopt it?
That would be awesome.
I think that's what we'll do.
Figured I'd leave it to you. So you don't need anything tonight, right?
Nope.
Moving right on along, and we will be coming back next meeting on that, Deb, just, and we'll
Do we
prepare
have,
us some
does each of us have one
resolution.
of these?
I printed this off, but Josh has got, he's
Oh,
even, Kyle's got better
Look at
ones.
here,
I cheated and did one of these, just a
Gotcha.
cheap way.
this pretty one, huh?
Thank you, sir. I'd rather
Thank
have that
you.
anyway. Thank you.
Thank you for your work, Kyle.
I thought HR Block was doing that.
That's what-
Moving
that's
right
about
along, we
ideal.
got the ordinance for Foxcliff South Agreement. That has run out. We've had that for several years, allowing our law enforcement to write tickets and enforce that. They're still responsible for the road, the signage and everything else. The original one is already in there that we signed, I know. Yes.
Called the
I have a
man
new
up.
one too.
This is the new
This
one.
is the new one.
This is a new one, yes. And basically, nothing has changed on this that I've seen.
A couple of words.
Couple
Your
of
lawyer
words.
lawyered it.
Oh,
Sorry.
I didn't catch that.
Just to make it fit the statute just a little better.
Okay. Any questions for Miss Ann on a couple changes, couple word changes that she did?
Bless you.
This used to say authorized, and now says required.
Okay,
Because that's what the statute
okay.
requires.
Instead of saying authorized like it used to, it does say required now, because that's what the statute requires, Miss Ann said, so. We'll allow the sheriff's department to keep doing their job out there.
Well, now we've got several advisory people here tonight. Thank them. Appreciate it. Didn't know you did all that stuff, you know. Glad to see you doing that. Okay.
We need to waive the second reading because this has already lapsed, it looks like.
But now,
On the Foxcliff, traffic regulations on private roads.
oh,
It's
are we
already
done with
lapsed.
this?
Yes,
Okay.
Ann's gonna do a resolution on that, have it for our next meeting.
Okay.
Resolution on what? Oh, yeah, that.
Driving through, we're on the Foxcliff Trails now.
And it's Foxcliff
No,
South
we are now-
only. We're not on the Foxcliff Trails, on the Foxcliff
Okay.
South roads is all they are. We only do the
Just
south.
what we did, how many years ago?
Oh,
In 20
several.
You did it in 2021, and then it expired, so we have to do it again. And then it will expire in 2028. You may have, yes. But the last
Didn't
time
do
you
it
did it
for
was in 2021.
What dictates the term of the contract? Or the length, I should say, the term, same as length.
In this particular instance, what dictated the term of the contract was the fact that that's what the folks from Foxcliff sent to me, so I just said, okay.
Okay. And I apologize, I didn't catch what you lawyered.
There was in the phrasing on paragraph 2, under the now therefore, it said, Morgan County by its Board of Commissioners, and it's FESHA, I guess is Foxcliff, whatever.
Estates, South,
Estates,
homeowners.
whatever.
Homeowners Association.
Yeah, it used to say are hereby authorized to enter. The statute actually says that you must be required to enter a separate agreement, which is also included in your packet, the separate agreement. And so I changed it to required. And then I just did a little cleanup on some other wordsmithing.
Sheriff, is the sheriff? Sheriff's not here.
Yeah, I need the agreement and.
And the contractual agreement and the ordinance.
Has the sheriff read this? I mean, it's what we've been doing for, I mean, before I pass this, the guys who have to go out and enforce this, they're good with it, right? Okay. Brian Collier makes a motion that we adopt and waive the second reading to the ordinance to extend the additional traffic regulations on private roads as requested by Foxcliff Estates South Homeowners Association, Inc.
Can I have those in 2 motions? Please, pretty please.
Yep,
I'm sorry, can
ordinance in one.
Can
the
Deb,
contractual
who's
in the
looking
other one.
sweetly down at you, have those in 2 motions, please?
With the first one just adopting it and the second one,
No, The first one
You're
would be to
adopting
waive,
those.
waive the
Second reading, okay.
second reading or the first reading, which we debate, and it's fun, but, you know, you're gonna adopt it on first reading, so you're gonna waive the second reading, and then the motion to adopt. Yes, please.
So my first motion would be that we waive the second reading.
I'll second that motion. Any further questions from the board or from the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
My next motion would be that we adopt and approve the ordinance to adopt, extend additional traffic regulations on private roads requested by Foxcliff Estates South Homeowners Association, Inc.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Adams. Any further questions from the board or from the audience? Not hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Still need this one.
We do need the agreement also, thank you.
Contractual agreement. It's in your packet. We also need to approve it as well. I'd entertain a motion on that.
Brian Carr makes a motion that we accept the contractual agreement found on the third page of this stapled together packet.
We got a motion. I'll second the motion. Any further questions from the board or from the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0 as well. You have another ordinance or resolution in front of you right now that's authorizing the investments of public funds. This is the new version that you had. Deb also provided you with the old version that was dated April 15th of 2024, but we need to pass a new one, and we have to do this every year, I believe, Linda? Yeah, okay.
Hey, real quick, Kenny, I'll just mention, so
Sure.
this is something we started doing a few years ago. It allows the county to invest in CDs outside of the corporate limits of the county. This is something that just expires annually, and that's why if you want to, you have CDs that exist outside of the county right now. So if you want to continue to hold those, we just need to update this annually.
We do.
And is there any state legislation that
Could
has
make this
bearing on this?
unnecessary.
Aren't they debating this?
It may become a moot point, but as of right now,
Right now, it's not.
we should continue to do that.
Have a resolution number, will it be today's date? Brian Carr makes a motion that we accept the resolution authorizing the investment of public funds pursuant to IC Code 5-13-9-5, Resolution 2025-3-17.
I have a motion. I'll second the motion. Any further questions from the board for Josh or Linda? Any questions from the audience? I'll see none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Hispanic agreement for Mr. Josh. It's a continuation on the 2 times we've already had this, I believe.
Yeah, so Justin was unable to be here tonight, but he asked that I would take care of this for him. You guys have talked about this already. He let you know that the state had a hiccup with the pricing. They got that fixed. Well, now they actually have the state agreement between the state and the local public agency, which is us. And so if you all are so inclined to formalize this agreement, then you can approve it tonight by voice vote, but then Commissioner Hale will receive a DocuSign to actually sign this. That's how the state does these now. But we wanted to give you an opportunity to affirm it first as a board before Kenny would sign anything. And
Any
Justin did
questions?
confirm this matches what it should have been.
Originally.
Don't have any other questions for Josh. I'd entertain a motion on this state-local agreement with NDOT.
I'll move that we approve this project coordination contract.
We got a motion. Do we have a second? We got a motion, a second. Any further questions from the board or from the audience? Not hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0.
So Commissioner Hale, you'll have a DocuSign you'll need to take care of. Thank you.
You'll get a DocuSign.
Yes.
You can't sign that one.
I've already, Management System IT Agreement, Josh, you want to step in here? I mean, this is something that we already have in place, I believe.
No, this is not something
Oh,
we have.
this is a new one you're telling us about.
Yeah, so we started this process quite a while ago. There's been a lot of baby steps along the way. The county migrated to SharePoint over this last year. We're working on our domain and our network generally. But one of the big needs, we are very understaffed for IT for the number of employees we have. We have one person. Currently, our IT director essentially operates like you would expect the normal blocking and tackling for an organization. It is not the kind of things that you would have a director typically working on. But when you have roughly 425 people and one person, that's how it falls. So instead of staffing up to the number of employees we would need to do this right, we've been exploring how do we bring managed services in-house. So we put out an RFQ, the request for qualifications for firms to bid on this work. GoodellNet is who we've been working with for SharePoint. We've been very pleased with them. They put in a strong application. So Joel and I have been working with them, and this is who we would recommend that the county would engage with to allow us. It's not just going to do the managed services. That is one thing. It's also really going to allow us to implement cybersecurity in a way that we don't do today to make sure that we are protected both in terms of data retention, encryption, backups in case we have.
Great, I'll never be able to get in my email.
Yeah, I know. You're in trouble now. And then just generally provides us all sorts of things like monitoring, network monitoring, allows the IT tools from this company to be deployed on our systems, as well as Joel having oversight of those. So this is the next step in us getting up to speed and up to the level of protection that we think we need as a county. And so we would recommend GoodellNet and their contract to you all for us to enter into managed services. And just so that's clear, it's $12,556 per month for, that's the whole bundle. That's the services and cyber protection and data monitoring, as well as consulting services.
But this group help us against, I'm sorry if you said this, ransomware?
Yeah, that's,
That's a
ransomware,
biggie.
this is where we would have all the data backed up, essentially you cut over and roll back instead of having to try to pay ransom.
Would this help us like if IT quit tomorrow?
Yeah.
This would, if that happened, there's all sorts of different models, but if that happened, you've got somebody who's already completely familiar with your network that can continue to keep things moving. You can't, in my opinion, for an organization our size, you can never outsource. You need to have somebody in-house to be your
Well,
director.
I agree, I'm just saying
But
that,
you're
but if
functional.
in-house decides that they're moving on and we have a void,
You're
this will
functional.
help bridge the void.
That's right.
I'll make the motion that we accept this contract. I think it's long overdue.
Agreed. I'll second.
We got a motion and a
thank
second. I
you.
got a question from Mr. Josh. Do we need to go ahead and change this? It looks like from you signature.
You're going to receive a DocuSign of this as well,
On this as well?
and
Do we
they
need-
name you as the person.
Josh, we were just debating whether we need, because we have the statement of work, the master services agreement, and the
Schedule
Schedule F, we kind of need to approve all of
All
it.
that in one motion,
would-
right?
Motion.
I would, however you are comfortable, I would approve all of them. And then the Schedule F that Ann put together will be included in the e-sign that they send you once we approve it.
So Brian, actually,
You need a master service agreement, you need the Schedule F.
in the statement of work, which is in your right hand right now, it's part of the packet
You
that's
want
in.
that, Madam Council, do you want that in 3 motions or 1?
Just one.
And Collier would amend the verbiage of his original motion to include the,
Statement of
Manage-
work.
pardon?
You're
Hey.
signing off on a statement of work.
Master
It's
service,
included in your hand, right there.
Statement of work.
master
managed
service agreement with
proposal,
Schedule F. All
Master
have it in
service
one
agreement.
motion. Yep.
And
Schedule F.
Schedule F.
Yes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further questions from the board or from the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0.
Umar, before we got all these attorneys involved, this job was a lot easier. Just letting you know. You're welcome.
Have that yet because I got tangled in it.
I understand.
So we're gonna have to table that.
We can
We
table
can
the
take that up
Monroe
on the
Township,
7th.
Township Capital Project Fund, if we get a motion to
move to table.
Got a motion, I'll second the motion, right? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Motion carries 3-0. Baker Tilly, Josh.
Real quick, just to let everybody know what the Monroe Township Capital Projects Fund is, we'll bring that to the next meeting. As part of the agreement at West Point, the commissioners negotiated with Raindrop LLC to have that entity put money back into the area to take care of public safety. And so that's the money that's allocated for an EMS facility. And so we have the money, and now we need to get it into a fund. That was something Linda pointed out to us, so that we can actually use it for the EMS facility we're working on.
Oh, we need to get that cooking.
Yeah, so we'll have that
That's
at your next
cooking.
meeting,
Okay.
as well as an additional appropriation for the
All right.
council to appropriate. So Baker Tilly, this is for, we do lots of things with Baker Tilly. They advise us in lots of ways. There's actually 2 different items in your packet from them. One, we haven't updated our master services agreement with them for some time. The language has been tweaked on their side, so they asked that we would reaffirm that in the newer version. So that's one item. The second is a project-specific engagement, and this is to look at, you guys rezone property for a data center out in the western part of the county. If we're going to have anything like that come to us for final approval, we want to make sure that you have the best information available. And this is for Baker Tilly to help advise you on what would be good for the county and what wouldn't be, as well as the underlying entities. As I would ask for approval of both the agreement and the specific scope of work for the project.
Any questions for Josh on this? Baker Tilly?
Well, clarification, we're approving 2 things, right? The,
That we've had ongoing with a couple of tweaks, and then another one helping us with
Right.
the scope of work.
But similar to the last, you could do it in one motion to approve the master services agreement and the schedule.
that's what I'm moving.
We got a motion for Mr. Adams to approve the service agreement as well as the Degan Special Attached A. I'll second the motion. Any further questions from the board?
That's all I had to say was that that's what I'm moving.
Hey, it works.
Any further questions from the audience?
We got that in the minutes, I hope.
Not hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Mr. Adams, well, one more thing. I got a couple people that signed up to speak. Joe Vincent, 5363 West Sims Lane.
Good evening.
I'm Joe Van Zandt, and I'm here with 30 signatures for the road conditions on Sims Lane. I've got pictures.
Yep.
That I'd like to somehow officially get on the record. Between several of us on the road, we've made calls and visits, and it just seems like we just keep getting ignored, and maybe a shovel of asphalt here and there is about the main things that we've gotten. Taxes have gone up. The last snowplow, this happens to be in front of our house, but the snowplow come down and pushed all the asphalt up
Oh,
along our fence.
Hmm.
My wife's pushing 69 and I'm pushing 64. We can't do it no more.
yeah.
And we've called them. They're supposed to come out. If they did, we didn't see them. Not saying they didn't, but it's still there. And I can't mow that and maintain that.
Is that off of Kivett? Are you off Kivett Lane?
The Sims Lane is off of Kivett.
Yes. Yeah, I know
Yes.
that works out.
And, I mean, this isn't the first time we've called. We've been there almost a little over 10 years, and we've called multiple times. Our neighbors have called. There's no ditches. Animals live in the drain pipe underneath. Raccoons and possums live under the drainage under the road. it just needs the assistance. We don't know how to officially get on. Every neighbor that we asked signed willingly. I mean, oh yeah, this road is just terrible. So I don't know who I should give this to or how I get that
We're gonna
officially.
give that to the little lady at the end.
Yep. And then the pictures don't do it justice.
Yep. Oh, I've been on it, I know. Last time it was, chip and seal was 2019, I believe, is the last
It
time that I
was.
know.
It was probably 6 years, 7 years ago. I don't know officially, but yes, they did do
This
that.
first year I went in as county commissioner, cause I got a lot of calls about it. People didn't like the chip and seal, and I remember that, but yeah, it's 2019.
Yep.
We
So,
we'll make sure the highway's got it,
and,
that's
and
for
a lot
sure.
of the roads around us have been paved longer distances, and we appreciate that, but,
Okay.
you know, less houses, longer distances. I know we're on a dead end, and that's probably why, but our taxes keep going up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
No maintenance really, you know, long-term maintenance.
I understand. And that is actually my district, and unfortunately, we don't have the populations of Martinsville and Mooresville. And I mean, ours, we're covering a lot more towns, or a lot more townships than the other two. So it's tough. I mean, I know we're getting ready to do chip and seal and paving both here real soon, but it's, and now they're actually doing all the ditching, removing all the dead ash and poplars standing in the right of ways before they do it now, so it's, I was out driving the roads today and I drove probably 45, 50 miles Friday, and I drove probably another 60 today, so. I'm getting my list together as well, so.
Yeah. Some of the vegetation have even grown into where it's, in
Oh,
the
yeah.
summer times when it really starts growing, it's hard to even get
Yeah.
down in a bigger vehicle. You know, and then, you know, I'm not trying to call any of them out specifically, but UPS, Amazon, Prime, I don't know, all pick your choice. They come down, there's nowhere to turn around. There's no turnaround at the end of the road. Well, then they back up onto personal property and cause ruts and, you know, I mean, I get it to a certain extent. It's our own fault for ordering stuff that way, but they should have a place to turn around at the end of the road. The school bus doesn't come down the road. When we first moved there, a school bus used to come down. School bus don't even come down no more. And one of the boys that lives down at the very end has to ride his bicycle out and then lock it up, because he had it stolen once, but lock it up to the stop sign down there. And then the parents have to drive down there and sit at the end of the road. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just not very user-friendly, and doesn't seem like it keeps up with the rest of the maintenance on the roads. And so we're here to try to put our voices together and see if there's something that we could get done.
I got more PACER rating threes in the county than what the other two have, period. I mean, it's, I've got a lot of roads in bad shape, but it's just trying to get all the roads done in that district's tough.
Yep.
I'll make sure I talk to them tomorrow about this, so.
Okay.
I've got her down, all three of them.
Yep.
Thank you. We have one more. Chuck, is wanting to speak as well, I see. Doing good. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is the Brown property, that's still the very last house on Sims Lane, correct?
Yeah, it's, I mean, it's been sold since then.
Oh, it
Yeah,
has,
way
okay.
back through the creek, Little
Yes,
Creek, and
yeah.
then back up on the hill.
Yeah.
Brownie used to live there.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
And most of it is all county maintained except for the last little bit, if I remember where the end of county maintenance sign
Right where that
was.
pond is right there, where Russ Mark.
Yes, yeah.
That, it says, there's a sign right there at the bottom of the hill,
Okay.
says in county maintenance. But I've lived there since '82, and when it was gravel back then. And then we met with at the courthouse, I think, back then, and they came and chip and sealed it. Big improvement over gravel.
Oh, yeah,
And then,
lot better.
and then I think they may have chip and sealed it, you know, one other time, like you spoke of.
I know, yeah, I know it was then.
Yeah, but it's rough. I mean, the first half of it is pretty good shape, other than it needs widening or ditched and culverts because the water stands and then it pops the asphalt.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that first half is kind of doable, but then that second half, the edges are deteriorating and there's no ditching. And then like Joe spoke of, and I'm basically reiterating or adding to what Joe said, when they plow, whether it's in a yard or in the woods, it's still just bringing up the asphalt. Because it's just
Oh, I
thin
know.
layer of asphalt, it's just, when it freezes, it's just laying there. And then, like I said, halfway down, possibly widen a little bit, because, I mean, me, like most people on that road, are picky about the yard, and if people meet, they'll just drive through the yard. You know how that goes, they're coming 3 foot in the yard. So, and I don't know how much can be done about that, that's a lot of work, but throw it out there and maybe, you know, and then there's a spot like a 2/10 of a mile up the road. For me, it's just a foot down, it's just where the road's sinking. And, that's been doing that for years. But like I say, Joe said the school bus won't come down that road, and they come down that road, all my kids down that road for years.
Oh, yeah.
Turned down there, Russ's house, Russ Martin, for years.
Hmm.
And now they won't even come down that road. And like I say, that boy, rain, snow, that boy is walking or riding up that road, and he won't take a ride. So he's walking, I'm 7/10 of a mile, so he's a mile. So he walks, he lives down there in Brownie's old house.
Yeah.
So he's walking or riding a bicycle a mile, whether it's 10 degrees or it's raining. That boy's, for whatever reason, his parents, but yeah, but my daughter got old enough to where she drove when that issue came about, because I think maybe the school got together and we're not coming down that road anymore.
Let me talk to him tomorrow, we'll see what we can get done. I got all 4 things down, so we'll see what we can get done.
Yeah.
Actually, 5 things, because I missed one. I don't have the trees on here, I just noticed.
But at my driveway, it's just, there's no ditching, so it's just a drop off kind of, and that's a 1-lane road.
Oh, I'm very aware of that.
It's coming up in the middle.
Yeah.
You know, it's getting to where if you got a low rider, she's gonna drag. So, but yeah, I'm basically just reiterating and adding to what Joe had to say.
Appreciate it.
Anything we'd appreciate.
Okay,
Thank
we'll
you.
see.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Adams, I believe we're at the,
Oh,
for the, for the good of the county.
I'm unprepared, to be honest with you. I've actually been under the knife for not too long ago. I would just be, I guess the best comment I could be making about the county right now was with a cousin this afternoon. He lives out on New Harmony, and we've been around here well, 82. So it's been a nice ride. But I think coming from New Harmony to Martinsville, it was so good to, and then coming by this building and seeing the work that's just continually going on to make this, we're looking at a couple 100-year project. When it's done, it's going to be making a lot of difference in the way people live in this county. But as seeing the growth and seeing the beauty of this place, I guess I fall in love with it every time I haven't been out on Sims, so I probably haven't fallen in love with that much of it, but there's a lot of beauty, and this is the time of year when I get all, it's a good time to sell somebody a piece of property, because you're not going to find a prettier place around Marion County than this burg. It just continues. I would also like to compliment, since Keith's here, I think both of us were talking this morning about the benefits of the correspondent. Especially been sort of, I guess you say it's kind of a trying time for a lot of things, but you know, they make us feel like a community, and we are a community, but without each other's stories, and I'm not just talking about ball teams, I'm talking about people and the history and all the things that you put in that paper every week. It's, if you don't take it, and if your neighbor doesn't take it, get it for him. That's where I'd go with it. That's all I can say. I keep jabbering about the beauty of it all, but the correspondence, such a blessing. Don't know anything major gonna be happening close. What's going on?
I got some major news. For everyone there and the few people that are attending the YouTube Live, please tell your neighbors that this board, along with the council, gets blamed for property taxes because the county is responsible for sending them out. There's legislation happening right now that could triple your property taxes overnight. Morgan County, I've always had great pride sitting up here for numerous years that we have very low property taxes. I'm gonna go on the record again, and I've stated it before, I hate, and hate's a tough word, it's a strong word. It's not a dislike, it's a hatred to property taxes. I'm no different than anybody else, and if you go on the record and Google it, you'll find that I pay my fair share of property taxes. But there is legislation to move numbers around and to move levies around and move things around that are out of our control if they pass this at the state level. And it will trigger about a 30% immediate hike to every single property here in Morgan County. And we will not be able to stop that. Or you're going to see such drastic cuts in services that you're not going to see the beauty of Morgan County because there won't be any roads at all. There won't be any police officers, blah, blah. I don't want to sound doom and gloom. I'm just telling people this is a very different legislative period in my 30 years of watching this, being a government geek and wanting to be involved in this. And there are things happening that are just blowing me away. But if you ask my wife, who I live with and don't get to talk to her very much this time of year because of my tax business, she doesn't know. And she's educated, and she lives with a guy who lives this stuff. There's so many people that won't know until when the property taxes come out, and it'll be too late. So make sure that you're following that. Please spread the word, because one thing that I think is neat about this area is that we do have low property taxes. Now, you may argue that that's not true, but take your $100,000 house, put it in Johnson County, Hendricks County, Hancock County, Hamilton County, Brown County, we're a lot lower. Now, that could change because we subsidize our property taxes with our higher income tax. I'm well aware of that. Tax me on what I make, not what I'm smart enough to invest in and keep, is my motto. So don't punish me for being a saver versus a spender. So, but there are some things that are coming down the pike that maybe the newspaper can pick up on, and other things that are alarming me. And it's moving fast, and we're at the back half of the state legislative calendar, and it looks, from what I'm hearing, it's going to pass.
I concur with you, Brian. There's no doubt about that.
And we'll be the ones that get blamed for it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, it's not even in our control panel. So other than that, yeah, now I don't want to be a Brian Downer, but no, I concur. It's a pretty time of year. I still think with the rolling hills and just the landscape, I think we live in the greatest, if not, I would move. That's the one thing my education has afforded me. I could move if I want to, and I don't want to. I love it here. And the people that are ripping on me on Facebook, keep it up. At least you're paying attention.
Well, I'd entertain a motion for
Kenny's
adjournment.
fault. Go on the record before I make a motion to adjourn that it's Kenny's fault.
I got broad shoulders. That's good. Entertain a motion for adjournment.
Oh, second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank